The bloodiest but most impressive scene of the Roman Empire? Gladiators. They were not just warriors, they were the stars of Rome. Here is information that will surprise you about gladiators. When we think of gladiators, the first thing that comes to mind is slaves. Most of them were actually slaves who had been captured in wars. They would put their lives on the line to entertain the people in the bloody arenas of Rome. But gladiators were not just slaves. Some free Roman citizens also volunteered to fight in the arena. Why? Because although being a gladiator was a dangerous profession, it was one of the fastest ways to gain fame, money, and status. Free gladiators were called auctorati, and they would throw themselves into this harsh world to win great prizes. The life of gladiators was fascinating for the people outside the arena. They were like the famous athletes of today. With every victory they won, their fan base would grow, and their names would echo in the streets. However, this fame came at a high price. Either you would survive in the arena, or you would lose everything in an instant. What about you? Would you fight like a hero for your chance to survive? Or would you submit to your fate like a slave? Spartacus was the most famous gladiator in Roman history and a symbol of freedom. As a Thracian slave, he was forced to fight in the arena, but his story went far beyond survival. Spartacus was not just a fighter, he was a leader and a symbol of rebellion. In 73 AD, he managed to escape from a gladiator school in Capua with 70 of his friends. This escape was the beginning of the largest slave rebellion in Roman history. He had only simple weapons, but thanks to his leadership and determination, he soon grew into an army of 100,000. This army consisted not only of slaves, but also of peasants and fugitive soldiers seeking freedom. Spartacus and his army won successive victories against the powerful legions of Rome. His intelligence and strategic genius surprised his enemies. However, Rome gathered all its strength to suppress this rebellion. In 71 AD, in the final battle with the Roman army under the command of Marcus Crassus, Spartacus and his army were defeated. Spartacus's body was never found, but his story ended with the tragedy of thousands of rebels crucified on the streets of Rome. Spartacus showed what it meant to fight for freedom. His courage was, and continues to be, an inspiration to all who resist oppression. What about you? Would you fight not to survive, but to be free? Gladiators went through a rigorous training process before fighting in the arena. This training was given in special gladiator schools, the Ludi. The school of Lentulus Batiatus in Capua was one of the most famous. In these schools, fighters specialized in different weapons and fighting techniques. They were trained for different roles, such as the heavily armored murmillos and the retiarius who fought with a net. The training was rigorous and tiring, food was limited, and slaves were subject to heavy discipline. But gladiatorship was not exclusive to slaves. Some free men also chose to join these schools as auctorati and become fighters. These schools held an important place, not only in fighting, but also in the economic and social structure of Roman society. Behind the show seen in the arena was such a difficult preparation process. Another show that was as popular as gladiator fights in Roman arenas was Venatio, or animal fights. In these shows, gladiators or trainers would fight wild animals released into the arena. Exotic animals brought from the vast lands of the Roman Empire. Lions, tigers, bears, elephants, and more attracted great attention from the audience. In Venatios, sometimes gladiators would fight animals directly, and sometimes they would try to catch or neutralize them. The fights usually ended in death, and the animals were often killed. In these shows, not only people but also animals lost their lives in the arena. Roman emperors would turn Venatios into big events, both entertaining the public and displaying their power with these fights. Such shows helped the emperors gain prestige. However, over time, Venatios began to be held less frequently due to discussions on animal rights and ethics. Nevertheless, they continued to have an important place in the culture of the arenas in Rome. Gladiator fights were one of the most popular entertainments in Rome, and this tradition, which lasted thousands of years, eventually came to an end. The last gladiator fight took place in the 5th century, near the fall of the Western Roman Empire. In 404, the last major gladiator fight took place in Rome, and this fight ended when the government passed a law. Emperor Honorius put an end to this bloody activity by issuing a decree banning gladiator fights in arenas. There were several reasons for the ban on fights. The Christianization process in Rome morally criticized such violent activities. While Christianity encouraged animal rights and respect for human life, gladiator fights began to be seen as a form of barbarism. In addition, Rome's military power weakened and economic crises began, which resulted in the unsustainability of the large expenditures made for public entertainment. The last fights were the last moments of gladiator culture in Rome. After these fights were banned, the arenas were used more for animal shows and other entertainment. However, gladiatorship remained one of the bloodiest and most dramatic aspects of the history of the Roman Empire. These fights were not just entertainment, but also symbolized the violent culture of Roman society. Gladiators were a symbol of both Rome's entertainment world and its brutal past. Could you survive in this arena? Share with us in the comments.